Hello F11 members and welcome to the Fundamentals of Post-Production video tutorials for issue 59, December 2016. On the screen in front of you, you have a picture from our trip to Ontario in the autumn. It's Charlton Lake, shot from a boat on a very moody, misty morning. I think the picture has a fair bit of mood, has a fair bit of impact. I'm quite pleased with it. But actually, I want to show you now the image straight out of the camera. So if I go to reset, that's the raw straight off the memory card. And as you can see, it's just washed out and lacking totally in any kind of impact. So let's work through what I've done to this picture to give it the impact that I need. And so the first thing I'm going to do is, as usual, I'm going to start by looking at the histogram of the image, and I expose to the right so that basically to maximize my information. The net result is it's just an image that looks far too bright. The darkest tone in the picture is a sort of muddy grey. So the first thing we can do actually to address that is by grabbing the black slider here and sliding it to the left. I put quite a bit of contrast into the picture by making the darkest tone in the image a black. And now I've gone all the way to minus 59 on my blacks. I may well come back and readjust that, but that's a start. And now what we see here is a histogram that's spanning the tonal range possible from the darkest to the brightest. All 256 tones are accounted for now. Next thing I'm going to do is come right down here. Before we go any further, just beware, by the way, the order you do things here in Lightroom is not etched in stone. Lightroom, Adobe have put them here in a certain order that has some logical element to it, but we don't have to stick to that order. And I'm going to come down here now and look at the Dehaze slider, which has the effect of, as the name suggests, removing haze from the picture. Well, what's the difference between haze and mist? Not a lot, really. It does seem bizarre to be really longing for misty, moody conditions and then use the Dehaze slider to take that mist out. But actually, if I use the slider here now and move it to the right, it starts to reveal, I can see detail coming through that wasn't there previously in the image. Now I've gone quite a way to plus 60 and I can now see emerging out of the mist the trees here in the background and this headland. It gives the image, excuse me, immediately much more impact. I'm going to come up now and you can see up here with my histogram, I've now actually got to the point where I'm clipping those blacks. So I have to come back and actually readjust those blacks, bringing it in until the clipping up here, as demonstrated in the histogram, stops. Next thing I want to look at is my highlights. And for here in the brightest part of the image, they're burning out. They're pretty bright. They're not actually burning out. The histogram is telling me that. But I can put a bit more density into that brightest part of the image there. So I'm going to pull back my highlights to about, round about there, plus minus 50, I reckon. Yeah. Okay, so making quite a bit of headway with this image already. Let's just pause and consider what I do need to do next. Next thing I'm going to look at is the lens profile correction. So let's come down here and it's lens corrections and I've selected profile here. And now if I click on the enable profile corrections there, it's correcting for the distortion and uneven coverage of the lens. And if I click on and off that, you'll see the difference. Not a lot. What it's doing is brightening the edges of the image. But in fact, I don't want that. I quite like the edges of the picture being darker than this central bit there. In fact, I may well choose to accentuate that. So I'm going to leave these profile corrections switched off. As always with post-production, if in doubt, do nothing. I'm going to put in a touch of a grad filter here, I think. Let's just try that here. Okay, so I've gone to my grad here. If I hold down Shift and pull the grad down from the top of the frame, it keeps it dead level. Now I want this to be very subtle, just darken the sky a touch. And I come back on my exposure here to about there. Of course, I do not want to make the sky look darker than the water, and then that would in turn start to look unrealistic. So I've come in on my exposure by about -41 there, and I think that's about right. I'm looking at the water now, and I'm going to use the grad tool on that. Here again, hold down the Shift tool, but this time drag the grad up from the bottom. Just going to adjust that a touch. This time I don't want to adjust the density or the brightness of that area that I'm making adjustments to using the grad tool. I want to tweak the contrast, so I'm going to just put a touch of contrast into that water there, around about +35 there. Done. And looking at the picture now, I'm just wondering if there's a lot of dead area at the top of the image there. I think it would benefit from being a 16:9 aspect ratio. So let's just select that. I could have, of course, done that in camera. I'm just going to select this format now. By the way, I'm making sure that that key is unlocked, which means I can change the aspect ratio of the image. Click on 16:9 there, and I can now move up or down that. So I'm going to go so that the water is right along that line of a third there. And I think that has a very pleasing letterbox type format that suits the subject well. We're getting very close to where I want this picture to be. Interestingly, I'm just going to experiment. This is something I very, very rarely do. But just out of interest, I want to have a look at taking some of that color cast out by using an auto white balance would do. It's taken some of the greeny tinge out of the image there. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to stick with what Mother Nature gave me. Okay. Next thing I do, I'm just going to add a touch of vibrance to the picture. I have experimented with doing this in black and white, but you know, there's something, if I just go here and click on black and white, for example, there's something there in black and white, definitely. But I think at the end of the day, I still like the color aspect of the image. So I'm going to keep it as a color image. And now I'm going to look at my sharpening. As always, click on the sharpen preset there. Come down here to my masking tool, hold down my Alt key, move the masking slider to the right until I've got enough masking applied so that it's affecting the sky and the water, just the sky really, I guess. And that's that. I think I'm pretty much there. Let's just pause and reconsider. So looking at the image now, I'm thinking a touch more density could maybe enhance the picture there. I could just use the point curve to darken it down. That gives a lot more impact to this area of the picture, but of course what happens is I lose in the center there, that kind of detail. So I'm just going to take that back off again. And consider how I'm going to do this. And I'm going to use the Radial Mask here. So if I click on this tool up here, and now I can add here in the center a mask. So I want to select this area just in the middle of the picture. So the first thing I'm going to do is now this means I can now darken down the edge of the image. Make sure, by the way, I've got a feather here. Now I'm going to put that feather up to maximum there. Just tweak the shape. You can see how I can do this. Alter the shape of my mask there. And now what I'm doing is I can actually darken down the periphery of the image, leaving this bit here untouched. So I've come down to about -30 on that, and I think that's working pretty well there. Okay, so I'll go with done on that, and now pause and reconsider again. I think I just want to give a little bit more detail here in the darkest area of the image, so I'm just going to boost the shadows a touch. I have to watch out that I don't go too far, because then it's going to look unrealistic, but certainly around about 25 just brings through a little bit of detail there in that rocky headland. And now I think really enough is enough. That image has worked quite well. And if I come down here to the before and after, you can see the radical transformation of that picture. Okay, F11 members, so just to recap what we've done here, we've used the Dehaze slider, we've used the radial filter. As usual, we've done tweaking of highlights, shadows, white and black points, and we used the tone curve as well. So generally speaking, that image has benefited from all of those steps. Okay, in part 2 I'll be doing something else, and as always we look forward to your suggestions as to what you'd like to see coming up in future editions of the Chasing the Light online magazine. Thank you.